Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And a happy July 2nd to you. And finally, a rain-free day for us, and looks like blue skies and sun out there. I am so grateful, and I know I'm not alone. Anyway, good to be here with you today. Wish it were wish these were different times than they are, but we don't get to pick. We don't get to pick them. Well, technically we do. We supposedly live in a democracy where the people do pick. They pick representatives who, as the word goes, represent us, our views, our desires in Washington, D.C. And you saw how much that bedrock of democracy has ceased to function just yesterday when the representatives in Washington failed utterly to represent the people that they represent. They passed a bill. It is big. It ain't beautiful. They passed a bill that will literally take food from the mouths of hungry children, medical care and access to it away from poor, elderly, disabled people. And that's just the beginning. All polling shows that the vast majority of the people that are supposedly being represented do not approve of this ridiculous bill, this cruel, outrageous measure that will literally take from the poor to give to the rich. And what's even more astonishing is that the people who will be so harmed by this measure, who are not, as a democracy is supposed to work, being represented by the people in Congress, they will not, odds are, understand that they have clearly chosen the wrong people who are failing to represent them. God. Bob is saying, well, at least Jimmy Swaggert passed before the big beautiful bill. Well, passed. Would that the big beautiful bill had passed in the same way that Swaggert passed. The terms do not mean the same. And Eric suggests, I first saw this as graffiti in the 70s in New York City. Eric says, eat the rich. And when I saw it, I thought, what? But I get it. They're eating us up alive. Speaking of Jimmy Swaggert, what a despicable person. Hey, name me, seriously, Can anybody offer up a television preacher, television evangelist preacher, whose name we all know, who you would truly call a man of God? Can you think of a one? Now, I suspect some of you might still be thinking Franklin Graham was, but I would argue with that with you. God knows his son ain't. Such a rogues gallery. I saw this about Jimmy Swaggert. At the height of his popularity, he was raking in $500,000 a day. $500,000 a day for spreading the word of Jesus. What did Jesus take in? $500,000 in donations from credulous people who he was robbing blind, and sales of merch, Bible courses. You know, it's a lot like Trump. It's a lot like Trump. They're both salesmen. I wish I could talk of Trump in the past tense, but they're both salesmen and performers who, for some reason, mesmerized a lot of people. They were liars. They misrepresented themselves, but they were performers. And those who were duped by them, who gave them willingly their money, fell for the shtick. So I read a piece today about how, they've reached a verdict in the Combs trial. Well, this ain't good for him. I think Mr. Combs is about to be sent away. The scuttlebutt is that he was not found guilty, perhaps, of some of the counts, but well, we'll find out soon enough. It's again the corrupting influence of money and celebrity. So back to Jimmy Swaggert, the corrupting influence of money and celebrity. I mean, and at least, and then sex always, yes, right? Sex becomes the downfall, as it is with Combs, as it is with Swaggert. Because they start thinking that rules don't apply, just like Donald Trump, another guy who has lost in court because of his sexual conduct. They're all of a piece, these corrupt men. But I read an interesting piece that I wanted to share a little bit of with you, because the fact is that, let me find it here. The there's a real difference between religious traditions. And as far as I can tell, I mean, that these public, he gets caught with a prostitute, right? And his reaction to that is to this tearful, self-involved show he put on. He turned his sin into another chapter of his, ongoing performance. And it worked. He's one of the first, that this piece suggests, who realized that if you get caught, you can just slip on by sort of owning it in a very public way. But I mean, it was a disgusting spectacle to a lot of people. If a Catholic sins, they don't make their tradition is you don't make this public display where you end up actually being lauded for it. Quite the opposite. You go into the total privacy of a confessional and you acknowledge your sin. There ain't no audience. And in the Jewish tradition, if you sin, this would have been considered, because it was adultery, it was a criminal act, it was a lot of things. He was sinning in a secular and a religious way. And his sin with his God, should have been, I mean, in the Jewish tradition, would have been handled by his appeal to God, not this show that he put on as he did, his appeal. It would have been private, quiet, remorseful. And his sin also against his wife should have been private. And he should have asked forgiveness of her because he had wronged her. But he did it in this public show, which is, for Jews and for Catholics, sort of appalling. Actually, I also read recently a piece about how when Dylan Roof went into that black church and sat with those prayerful people and then mowed them down, how some of the families of the dead almost immediately forgave him as they understood Jesus would. And that kind of forgiveness is absolutely incomprehensible to most of us, whether you are Christian or Jewish or anything, because I don't know about you, but I cannot imagine so quickly forgiving somebody who had stolen the life of someone I loved. And in fact, in the Jewish tradition, we are not in a position to forgive the person. So the families of those killed at Tree of Life, even though some came out, they didn't couch it as forgiveness, but came out against taking of the life of the murderer because they're opposed to capital punishment. But there was no forgiveness coming, as far as I know, because the Jewish tradition says if you wrong another, and God knows a murderer has wronged another, then the only way you get absolution is not from God, but from the person you wronged. So that you have to go to the person and apologize, privately apologize and say, I have wronged you. I am sorry. Please forgive me. You may or may not get forgiveness. But if you kill someone, you can't ask them for forgiveness. They aren't there to give it. But I suspect that mostly the human reaction is hardly to forgive the taking of the life of a loved one. And I am always just blown away by those who somehow summon that ability. Truly. I got a caller here. Okay. Hello.
It all comes down to that old bumper sticker I saw about 40, 50 years ago. I don't have a problem with Jesus. It's his fan club I can't stand.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. For me personally, it's his fan club that's the reason I'm not Christian anymore.
Yeah.
I wasn't raised super religious, but my dad was an alcoholic. He got sober when I was 13. He went into AA. My mom was already in Al-Anon. They got born again. They sent me to a really good Catholic school. And back then, this school didn't teach, it didn't teach the Bible. They taught, it was more like a philosophy class.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I still believed. And then I was 17, still in high school, when I met my girlfriend's mom's boyfriend, who came in after church with a whole big pamphlet talking about why rock and roll is the work of the devil, and the number one song on the list was John Lennon's Imagine.
Oh, that's the work of the devil. Imagine there's no war.
There's no heaven.
Oh, because imagine there's no religion.
Imagine there's no heaven. Imagine there's no hell.
Oh, right.
Just living for today.
But you know what? Hey, do you remember that song? Am I remembering this correctly? That song was part of Jimmy Carter's funeral.
I do not remember that.
Yes. And I was blown away by it because I don't know about your girlfriend's mother's boyfriend, but Jimmy Carter was a real Christian in every way. And he wanted that song played at his funeral.
He would have been considered back in the day one of those crazy Southern Baptists, and now that's not crazy anymore.
Oh no,
He's not crazy.
He's the genuine article. He's the real Christian,
Yeah.
and there are so few.
But that interaction, it was the first time I was blatantly disrespectful to a grown up. He just pushed my buttons because I was very shy. I was very soft spoken. I'm 17 years old. I'm a stupid kid. What do I know? But he pushed my buttons.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, when Jimmy and Tammy Faye Baker from the PTL Club, when that all went bust, and my parents had given them lots of money.
Oh dear.
And then Reagan and Jerry Falwell came along.
Yeah.
And they just tried to, and then the Catholic Church and the Boy Scouts were all anti-gay, and then all those sexual molestations, came up. I mean, it all comes down to, when it comes to Christianity and where my personal stance is, it's the believers that turn me away. It's not, I wasn't converted by some crazily religious sect or cult it was Christians who turned me away from Christ. So fuck you. And I just like, I'm serious.
I hear you. I understand. I mean, and you're hardly alone.
And they're following. and then Donald Trump, he's just like the icing on the cake, the poster child of the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah. And he's a true exemplar of all of it.
You guys can just go to heaven and be happy in your bizarre health and bizarre heaven, and a camel will go through the eye of the needle and all that bullshit too, I guess.
Okay, you fallen away sinner. Goodbye.
I'm not bitter.
Be gone. You're very not alone. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. I've got a letter here from a letter. Boy, are you old or what? Some you'll say, what's a letter? You mean A, B, or C? Got a letter here from an email from Josh, who says, back in the 80s, people like Jimmy Swaggert would point their fingers at sinners like rock stars, particularly Ozzy Osbourne. Okay, he's been found not guilty of what? It just disappeared. Of sex trafficking. Okay, it just disappeared. Well, it'll come back. Whatever. I don't give a shit. Back in the 80s, people like Jimmy Swaggert would point their fingers at sinners like rock stars, particularly Ozzy Osbourne. In 1988, I didn't know this, Ozzy released a song called Miracle Man. And he did it after Swaggert got busted with the prostitute. And here are some of the lyrics. I'll share some. I'm looking for a miracle man that tells me no lies. I'm looking for a miracle man who's not in disguise. I don't know where he'll come from, and I don't know where he's been. But it's not our Jimmy sinner because he's so obscene. Miracle Man got busted. That's the Miracle Man got busted. Today I saw a miracle man on TV crying. Such a hypocritical man, born again, dying. He don't know where he's going, but we know just where he's been. 'Twas our little Jimmy sinner that I saw on the screen. A devil with a crucifix, brimstone and fire. He needs another carnal fix to take him higher and higher. Now Jimmy got busted with his pants down. Repent, ye wretched sinner, self-righteous clown. I love it. Yay, Ozzy. Yay. Oh my God. So, and Milton says, Christian, uh, Christians sure as hell cured me of Christianity. Yeah, isn't it something? Isn't it something? So, listen, before I look up the Combs thing, um, yesterday with Susan, I was talking about how I was freaked out by time and how as we age, it passes so quickly and that there and why is that and I want to thank two of you for sending me letters for sending me emails giving me your take. Tom says this in part. I won't. Each and this made sense to me, and I thank you for it. I mean, I might have figured it out myself if I bothered to trouble my head. He says every year, a year takes up a smaller and smaller percentage of your life. So a year is very different to a 10-year-old than it is to a 60-year-old. Yeah. For a 10-year-old, that's what? A year is a tenth of their life. For a 60-year-old, it's a sliver. It's a 1/60th. So the years get smaller. Time then passes faster. Yeah. And then Tom goes on to talk about, I've even thought about seasons as a measure of time. You know, when you start thinking about, yeah, well, seasons, there's 4 of those in a year. So and it is true, the seasons. I mean, it's like, I think I said yesterday, my God, it's July. How did it get to be July? It's like the summer's going so quickly. How come winters don't go so quickly? So there was that, and I thank you for it. And then there was this from Jan. I'd like to share something someone once told me about time flying. And it was this: life is like a roll of toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. Okay, well, that too. It's that too works. So I just wanted to share uh, those two things with you. Um, so hang on here. Ray says Jesus and his fan club. Oh, he's part of the fan club because I know Ray is a good Catholic, I believe. He says, okay, now do Mohammed. I don't know enough about Mohammed to do Mohammed. I don't. You know, I grew up in America that didn't have a lot of Muslims in it, so I've come late to them. But God knows you're right. I'm sure. I don't know. I don't know. See, I have never said a bad word about Jesus. Uh, Jesus was a wondrous. I mean, I'm a Jew, so I don't think he was the Son of God, but he was a wondrous being who had one of the greatest impacts on the world a human could have. He was a rabbi, which means he was a teacher. And he was fierce in his kindness. I and what he preached, as far as I know of it, I have very, very little that I would dispute, wouldn't go up against him. But the people who he would be appalled, and I've often thought this, he would be so appalled. It's not that he founded a church, you know. He might be appalled that a church got founded because of him, because he was a Jew. He was preaching to Jews and trying to get them to reclaim the teachings of their religion. Because adherents, people who call themselves, I mean, obviously, none of us ever measure up to the strictures of whatever religion we profess or were raised in. So I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I was looking for the verdict. You guys are probably well ahead of me because you don't have to be talking right now. You can be scrolling around on your phones. But not me. So whatever. I don't give a shit. I didn't even watch the damn thing or care about it. But yesterday I did find myself listening as okay, he's found not guilty of sex trafficking and racketeering, but is convicted of a lesser charge. Two count, not charged with, has been charged with one. Yeah, they let him go. Well, I don't know if they let him go. All right. Well, I thought the sex trafficking and racketeering charges were a reach by the prosecutors. They had to do with the fact that he brought in, for these sex extravaganzas of his, brought in people he paid, prostitutes, and that I guess state lines got crossed. That then becomes what, sex trafficking? And then the racketeering is that, you know, he had his employees were working with him to stage these events. I mean, it just seems like, yeah, overreach, and it didn't work. Robert says, I need a break from all of this. Got any stories from your days on the Pennsylvania game? Well, I told one yesterday. That's my best one, that Nancy Culp made a pass at me. Miss what's her name? What was she on? And now today I can't even remember the show. Beverly Hillbillies. I mean, other than that, she was very nice and bright and whatever. I'm trying to think. I can't, I have no memory. None. I was paging through this this lined paper binder thing that I use to sort of just make every morning I make a list of subjects I have that I might want to trouble you with, and I opened the binder to rip a page out, and there was writing already on it, and I'm just blown away by it. I have no memory of this at all. But it was clearly an attempt on my part that I don't think ever saw fruition to write a poem for my dad's 86th birthday. I have no recollection of this attempt, no recollection of this scribble that I'll share it with you. It ain't very good, but in it, I do refer to the fact that one of the things, I think I've told you this too, that as my dad aged and got into his 80s, he suffered a lot of pain and heart issues and stuff, and he would be sitting in his recliner chair, and when I would come to Green Bay to see him, I would, obviously I'd say, "Hi, Dad, how are you?" And his answer toward the end of his life was always the same. He'd say, "Diminished." And he was a man of words. My love of words, I'm sure, derives from him, and he never used a one syllable word where a 5-syllable word would suffice. And God, but diminished. I thought that was brilliant because it was true. In every way, he found the right verb. No, the right, excuse me, adjective. Um, he was, because as you age, things do diminish, and the aggregate of it is that you are your hearing is diminished, your muscle tone is diminished, perhaps your eyesight diminished, your height, you literally are diminished. Everything, you begin to lose things, which makes you diminished. I always thought it was just one of his more just nailed it term. So anyway, I came upon this just literally right before the show started. I'll read it to you. There was clearly one thing that I got nowhere with. I can't write poetry. I was trying to do poetry that rhymed. I can't do it. And this is another indication that I must have made an effort and then gave up. It started 86 years ago in a city on the bay. A boy was born. And then I stopped because I guess that didn't go anywhere. Well, maybe it picks up here. Anyway, okay, in a city on the bay, a boy was born. Who would have thought we'd all be here to mark this auspicious day? When Norman Miller, now 86, blew the actuarial charts away. Plagued by afflictions from stem to stern, he calls himself diminished. But we all see and celebrate that he is far from finished. Oh, God. Okay, I don't believe I ever shared it with him. Okay. So is that my last ability to spare you? Oh, I saw a good bumper stickery. Yeah, and Roger wants to make clear my Jesus rant was against Christians, not. Whoa! Look at this. Breaking news: the Wisconsin Supreme Court has ruled that an 1894 law banning most abortions is not valid because the Republicans were enforcing it. Well, that's good. And Roger wants us to know that his Jesus rant was not against. Well, I told you. I think you made that very clear. Was against Christians, not Jesus. And he says it's Christians who need to fix this perception regarding any religion that does not allow women as equals. What intelligent person would be okay with that? And that goes for, yeah, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Well, certain forms of Judaism. The form I belong to does see women as fully capable of, yeah. We count. You know how in order to pray you need 10. It's called a milllion, and women weren't counted. There could be 90 women who show up for services and 9 men, and you wouldn't be able to pray because women don't count. Jeez. Yes. Okay, so oh, and listen, speaking of that abortion thing, I do want to share this with you because I was unaware of this. The that big beautiful bill that passed the Senate and is now back in the House. I mean, we've talked a lot about, stealing from the poor to give to the rich, which it does, but it also, I think, will make abortion, and this has gotten very little attention, it's going to make abortion very difficult to get, even in states in which it's legal still. Like Pennsylvania, we supposedly have the right to abortion, right? Well, in this bill, organizations like Planned Parenthood would be denied all Medicaid payments. Now, Medicaid can't, this has been on the books for a long time. You can't use Medicaid to pay for abortions. Now, a lot of the women who come to Planned Parenthood for care are on Medicaid. That's their insurance. So if they need an abortion, Planned Parenthood has ways where this is where people donate to Planned Parenthood to help a woman who needs an abortion to be able to access that because her insurance, Medicaid, won't. I think that's the result of the Hyde Amendment, right? But this big, beautiful bill says Planned Parenthood cannot receive any Medicaid, for anything. Now, most of what Planned Parenthood does, although this will be a big shockaroo to a lot of people, is not abortion. Planned Parenthood is a woman's health clinic. They do everything. I mean, all kinds of exams, gynecological, breast, cancer screenings, all that kind of stuff is done at Planned Parenthood. And for a lot of women, that's where they go for their medical care. And a lot of those women are on Medicaid. There's no way Planned Parenthood, like here, can make up the difference. There's no way. I served on that board. There's no way if they can't receive Medicaid payments after this bill is signed, that they will be able to, I don't know what will end up happening. But there will be, I would imagine, Planned Parenthood shutting down in states where it's legal. Is that out there? Has that been covered? I don't think I'm misrepresenting that, but I myself did not realize that until I read a piece in the Atlantic, and if I can find it, it makes very clear that, and I can't. Oh no, here. And it's titled "The Biggest Anti-Abortion Victory Since Dobbs." They're saying somehow nobody has been reporting that. If this passes, it says, clinics all over the country, red states, blue states, will be affected. And it says here it would have a devastating impact on a lot of providers. Some would probably close. Others would have to limit the number of patients they serve. It's a really big deal. And then they say, yeah, it was in 76, that long ago, that the Hyde Amendment banned federal funds for being used for abortions. But Planned Parenthood's, a big percentage of their patient pool relies on Medicaid. And they don't go there, as I said, for abortions, and Medicaid and Planned Parenthood has received Medicaid payments for, like breast cancer screenings, Pap smears, STI testing, whatever, all these things. But this bill would make Planned Parenthood and any other clinics ineligible for any Medicaid reimbursement. And if I don't know. It says it'll probably hit in blue states more so because it's the blue states that have recently expanded Medicaid. It says to up to 1/3 of patients at Planned Parenthood of Northern New England, for example, are on Medicaid. And she says, if we don't get reimbursement for treating these women, it's going to be difficult, to say the least, to make up the difference. And this comes after the Supreme Court last week made it easier for states to deny Medicaid funding to Planned Parenthood. So this is This is a double whammy. If you are a donor to Planned Parenthood, man, they need it now more than ever in my lifetime. Just saying. There's so much hell and horror going on. I was going to share this when I think the Diddy thing came down. It was a bumper sticker. It says here, "The wrong Amazon is burning. The wrong ice is melting." Man, yeah. So Trump, I think I mentioned this yesterday. He's reached an agreement with Paramount-CBS on this bullshit shakedown of them for not editing a Kamala Harris interview on 60 Minutes to his liking. There is no way what they did was in any way defamatory and or worthy of going to court for any reason at all. And damn if Paramount, who owns CBS, is not going to line Donald Trump's pockets with $16 million. They, I think they got off cheap because he'd wanted 20. Do you realize how many of our major media, broadcast media outlets have been shaken down by him like this to the tune of millions and millions? It's just breathtaking, the corruption and the incredible fact that these corporations are caving. Yeah, it says, part of the bargain says that Paramount will not apologize. I suppose they think that's a big, we stood on principle. We're giving this crook 16 mil for no reason at all, other than he's threatened to get in the way of this merger we want and to sick his FCC on us, but we will not apologize for having done nothing wrong. Well, I just want to say this. They damn well better apologize to anyone who ever watched their news. They should apologize to the American people for their cowardice and their greed, for their failure to stand up. Now, those who did stand up, they're gone, right? This has resulted, the longtime executive producer of 60 Minutes and the chief executive of CBS News, they've resigned. Or they were ousted. I'm not sure. But yeah. Unbelievable. ABC gave him 15 mil to settle another phony lawsuit. CBS absolutely did nothing wrong. They edited an interview. That's what you do. Can't put an entire interview on. And they had two versions of it. They had one that played in some place and another on 60 Minutes. And a professor of broadcast journalism said they did absolutely nothing wrong. This is standard editing technique. And if you pay them millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to a public official for something that is standard conduct, that is legally protected, that is not a crime, where the heck is that going to end? Well, it's going to end with our democracy finished. That's it. Margaret said it's extortion. Yeah, it is. The extorter in chief. Mind-blowing. And then I read that there was $7 billion that Congress has already, dispersed, because that's what Congress's job is. And that $7 billion was earmarked specifically for public schools, and even more specifically for, I believe, after-school programs and a few other things, summer school programs. And damn, Trump has said he won't disperse it, which is unconstitutional. It's another, these are all impeachable offenses, one after the other, whether it's the corruption, the open corruption, or the unconstitutional behavior. And in the article I read about this, that $7 billion keeps all kinds of programs in like rural public schools up and running, that when you pull the money, they're gone. The programs are gone. Parents are left with no alternatives. And the parents are Trump voters. Are they waking up? Little late, maybe too late. I'll just finish with this from Heather Cox Richardson about why it might be too late. Trump continues to say he will arrest and deport American citizens to third countries, to places. American citizens, not immigrants. Yesterday, Trump told reporters, we also have a lot of bad people that have been here for a long time. People, that whack people over the head with a baseball bat, kill them. People that knife you when you're walking down the street. They're not new to our country. They're old to our country. Many of them were born in our country. I think we ought to get them the hell out of here. You want to know the truth? Maybe that'll be the next job that we're going to work on together. So he's going to start sending Americans to hellhole gulags or deporting them. He has also said, yesterday, that he is going to be investigating the Homeland Security Secretary under Biden. That'd be Alejandro Mayorkas. He also has threatened to arrest Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee for New York City mayor. And he has called him a communist. And he also said a lot of people here say that he is here illegally. No, he's not. He's a citizen. He's a natural citizen. And then she pointed out that one of the FBI agent who told the January 6th rioters storming the Capitol to go ahead and kill police officers, a guy named Jared Wise. Well, Trump loves this guy. He's working with the task force in the Justice Department to set up a way that the president can seek retribution against political enemies. And then he traveled to the Alcatraz the other day. The cruelty and the joy these people take in it is just astonishing. And Heather Cox Richardson says this: once a new system of detention facilities, because he says he wants more and more built in other states, more in Florida. You can't build them. Now we're not building walls. We're building gulags and concentration camps. And he says once these are built and getting filled up by masked Gestapo called ICE agents, and we get a little more used to the fact that a president can go after his political enemies using the Justice Department, Heather Cox Richardson, a brilliant historian, says an American police state will be in place. Well, guys, we are there. Also saw a piece today about how Chinese students who are here are feeling very much at home. They're used to living in a police state. They're used to looking over their shoulders and lowering their voices when they're talking about certain things and making sure their social media accounts are scrubbed of certain things. And you talk to anyone here going to school here from China, they will say they feel like they're home. Yeah. Okay. That'd be it. That'd be it. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.